What I'd like to go over now is your pre-trip inspections. How many of you have gone down the road only to see somebody pull up beside you and point up or to the compartment doors? There's a lot of items that you need to check before you leave after you break down your campsite. And what I like to do is have a printed copy of the checklist. That way we don't forget anything. The place I like to start at first is on the interior of the trailer. I'll walk to the bedroom and just work my way out. So I'm going to check to make sure that my TV is in place. I'm going to make sure all my loose items are stored and secure. Then I work my way to the bathroom. At the bathroom, I want to check and make sure that the shower door is locked in place. Again, everything is stored and secured, and lids are down, water is turned off, and then we just start working our way out to the living room and the kitchen area. At the kitchen area, we're going to make sure the stove top is down, and of course you want to make sure that the gas is turned off of your stove and your refrigerator. Make sure all the windows are closed, curtains are up, cabinet doors are closed, all the items on top of the counter is either put away or secured, and all the roof vents are closed. We want to make sure the TV is secure, and then we want to make sure that all of our lights are turned off, the 12-volt lights. And then you want to also make sure that your water heater is turned off. You want to make sure that the water pump is turned off if you've been dry camping. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do when I go to the exterior is I'm going to my gas supply, and I'm going to turn the valves off of my LP tanks. At that point, I will walk around the trailer looking for any missing nuts or bolts or rivets. I'm going to check the molding on the trailer. And the other thing I'm going to look for is delamination of the trailer. I'll walk around and inspect that. We're going to check out the TV antenna to make sure that we've lowered that. I want to take a look at all my slides to make sure that we've got the slides completely in and tight. Now, one of the last things I'll do is I'm going to walk around and make sure all my baggage doors are closed. I'm going to make sure that my entry door steps are put in place, doors are closed, and everything is locked. Before I put the truck in position, I'm going to climb up in the bed of the truck, and I'm going to check for the fifth wheel. I'm going to make sure that all the pins are in place and secure. Make sure there's no missing bolts. Make sure that the jaws are lubricated. After I've checked that, I'll go to the trailer, particularly the kingpin box. The kingpin box, I'm going to check the connecting bolts just to make sure that they're torqued properly. Now, they use different size bolts on that, so you'll want to make sure that you look up the torque value for the size bolt that they're using to connect your pin box. After you check the torque, you want to do an inspection on the kingpin itself, just to make sure there's no damage, such as gouging on it. And one thing you want to do is to inspect the pigtail, the wiring on it, just to make sure that the insulation's good, there's no exposed wires or any shorts in there. We're ready to back the truck in and to lock it into place. Okay, now that we've got the truck attached to the trailer, we want to connect the breakaway switch, and it's very important that you do hook that up. After you put your breakaway switch in, it's time to plug in your pigtail. Just make sure that it's very secure and pushed all the way in, and then that the cap goes down on top of it because there's a lock in there. Give it a wiggle, make sure it doesn't pull out. We want to walk around the trailer just to ensure that we've got all of our water hoses, sewer hoses, and electrical cord disconnected and stored securely. We need to walk around, remove all of our wheel chocks, and store those. At this point, I'm ready to raise the landing gear. Okay, now that we've got our landing gear up, we're ready to get inside the truck and check our brakes, just to ensure those are working properly. What I do is I'll normally get inside, put the truck in gear, then I'll start pulling forward, and then I reach for the slide on the brake controller, put it up to full 12 volts. At that point, it should stop the truck and the trailer. You always want to check your tires before going on a trip. Normally what I'll do is I'll walk, kneel down, look at the tread pattern on that. If you see any excessive wear on the inside or the outside, you probably have an issue going on and want to get that checked out. The next thing I'm going to check on the tire is the pressures. Now I use a tire pressure monitor, and it tells me exactly how much pressure is in each tire, so that makes it a little bit easier. I do highly recommend the pressure gauges. It can save you a lot of money in the long run if you save a tire. After I do that, I am going to check the torque on my lug nuts. Now, most of your trailers have aluminum rims, and they will loosen up the lug nuts on that. So you want to check those torque values before any trip. Now that we have checked all the external components on it, I want to check the lighting on the trailer. What I'll do is turn my headlights on, put the flashers on, and then do a walk around. I want to make sure all the running lights are working properly, the tail lights on the truck. Then you go to the rear of the trailer, and if your flashers are working, you know that the turn signals and the flasher lights are in operating condition and burning. Now, as most of you know, when you're pulling a trailer, the folks in the cars do not want to be behind you. So they're going to get out in front of you, and then they're going to hit their brakes, and you're going to have to make an emergency stop. So one of the most critical points of a pre-trip inspection is on your brakes. I like to walk by, and incidentally, I do use disc brakes on mine. But I'm going to walk by and look at the thickness on the pads. If it's anything 1/8 of an inch or less, it's time to change your brake pads. I check the rotors just to make sure there's no warping or gouging in that, indicating that the pads have worn it. One area that I really want to check on the calipers is the caliper bolts themselves, just to make sure they're torqued in at 45 foot-pounds. At that point, I'm going to go to the front of the trailer where the actuator is, and I'm going to check the brake fluid just to make sure that we're at the proper level on that. After I check the brake fluid, what I'll do is go and inspect the brake lines, and I'm looking for any crimping or any leakage that would be coming from any of the joints. Now, if you have electric brakes, obviously you can't check the brake pads without pulling the whole hub off. But what you want to do is crawl underneath it, look at the brake wires, the magnet wires particularly, just to make sure that there's no broken insulation on it where it would be shorting out. You want to make sure that the wires have not pulled out from the magnet. One thing that I always do religiously is inspect my running gear. What I'll do is start at the spring hanger. I'm going to make sure that there's no broken welds and it's not bent or no cracks in it. I'll check the leaf springs, following it on up to ensure that there's no broken leaf springs or cracks in that. We'll follow that on to the hanger plate, At that point, I'm going to check all the torque values on those U-bolts to ensure that we're nice and secure on that. From the tie plate, we'll go up to the front of the leaf spring. That's where your shackle links attach to the leaf spring to the equalizer. And we just want to check for excessive wear on those. We want to make sure all the bolts are in place and not broken. You'll do that with all 4 wheels. Again, just looking for any broken components or broken welds. The other thing I'm going to look at is the equalizer. That's where the 2 leaf springs attach in the center of the suspension. You want to make sure that it's in good working order and not worn. And as an added bit of information, all your connecting bolts on the leaf springs and shackles should be torqued at about 50 to 60 foot-pounds. Now, if you have an independent suspension system, we actually use rubber on that instead of the steel leaf springs. So you would want to crawl down and take a look at that rubber, see if there's a tear in it that's 3 inches long, about 3/4 of an inch deep. If it is at that point that it's time to change that spring out. Now, you don't have to cancel your trip, but it's time to get it changed out in the very near future. The other thing I'm going to look for is the shock absorber, just to see if there's any fluid on that shock absorber. On the back side of the torque bracket, there are 2 large nuts. You want to make sure that those are in place. And other than that, you really don't have a whole lot to check on the independent suspension. Well, it's very important that you do your pre-trip checklist. You really don't want to be on the side of the road. Not only is it inconvenient, but it's also very dangerous. So please do your checklist, and I would highly recommend that you use a pre-trip checklist just to make sure you don't miss anything, because there's a lot to check and it's easy to forget.